Discover the incredible journey of the hidden farmer boy who transformed life with Ford, a touching tale of resilience and hope. On a modest farm rooted in a small Midwestern town, 12-year-old Jimmy Foster woke each morning with the sun barely peeking over the horizon. The air was crisp, filled with the scent of earth and possibility. His grandfather's lessons danced in his mind: resilience, loyalty, honor. Jimmy could feel the weight of his family's struggles pressing down on his small shoulders, as if the world expected him to carry it all. With his hands calloused from long hours of labor, Jimmy tended to the crops, imagining the stories each seed held. However, whispers of change gripped their town like a summer storm cloud, heavy with uncertainty. A local entrepreneur, with a grin as bright as a neon sign, announced plans for a factory. It promised jobs for many, but it threatened to trample the very roots of their agricultural legacy. Jimmy felt his heart sink. Day by day, he watched his father grow, increasingly enchanted by visions of paychecks and machinery, while Jimmy's own spirit clung to the notion that farming was their identity, their pride. The rift grew, stretching between them like an uncrossable chasm. The town's atmosphere crackled with tension. Farmers and workers divided like oil and water. At the diner, voices once united by shared hardship became heated debates over factory dreams versus the honor of honest toil. Jimmy listened in despair as neighbors argued. Friends turned against one another. He couldn't bear the thought of their community fracturing. Determined to bridge the ever-widening gap, Jimmy concocted an ambitious plan: a festival to celebrate the farmers who had tilled the same land for generations. As he jotted down ideas, he felt the skepticism of townspeople weighing down on him. Even in his own family, doubts bubbled over. But see, Jimmy believed fiercely that their stories needed telling. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The day of the festival arrived with dark clouds drifting ominously overhead. Fear tightened around Jimmy's chest. Just as rain threatened to wash away years of hard work, hope appeared in the form of a local news crew. They arrived, cameras rolling, drawn by the spirit of the gathered community. Jimmy watched, heart racing, as curious eyes from neighboring towns wandered in, intrigued by the rich tapestry of local farming life. As dusk descended, the excitement grew. Friends shared laughter under dimly lit strings of lights, and conversations began to weave together fragments of history. But just as unity seemed possible, whispers of dissent arose again, slicing through the air. Could they truly embrace each other as contributions, or would the divide consume them? In that moment, as the crowd swayed with uncertainty, Jimmy held his breath, wondering if this festival would be the start of rebuilding their town, or if it would unravel them further. Would they find a way to honor their past and create a hopeful future? A new chapter loomed ahead, and nobody knew how it would unfold. As twilight settled in, the crowd began to pulse with life. The rich aroma of fresh-baked pie mingled with the earthy scent of hay bales stacked high, creating an intoxicating atmosphere of nostalgia. Jimmy stood beside the wooden stage he had built himself, feeling the weight of it all in his chest. His hands trembled, yet his eyes sparkled with determination. This was more than just a festival. It was a lifeline for his community. One by one, local farmers stepped up to share their stories. Each tale of hard work and sacrifice was met with eager ears and heartfelt nods. The elderly Mrs. Hargrove spoke of her family's battle against drought in the 80s. Young Tommy Bailey, not much older than Jimmy, recounted how he diligently cared for his first pumpkin patch, hoping to win a blue ribbon at the county fair. The stories stirred whispers of recognition among the crowd, igniting a flicker of hope in hearts that had grown weary. But as the sun dipped below the horizon and the first stars appeared like pinpricks of light in the velvety sky, the tension lingered. Jimmy's heart raced as he noticed the skeptical glances exchanged between those who favored the factory and the committed farmers. He swallowed hard, steeling himself for the next part of his plan. "Let us take a moment to reflect on everything that binds us," he called out, his voice steady but underscored by a tremor of urgency. "Each of us has fought our own battles. Our families, our values, they've shaped who we are. No matter our dreams, we share this land. We don't have to choose between the past and the future. We can embrace both." A hush fell over the crowd, an unexpected pause in the evening air as they absorbed his words. He searched their faces, hoping to find a connection, a flicker of understanding. Just as silence weighed heavy, a soft voice broke through. It was Mr. Thompson, the stoic farmer known for his fierce loyalty to tradition. "You're right, Jimmy," he said, his voice rough but imbued with sincerity. "We've always helped each other. Even the strongest winds don't break the trees that stand together." A ripple of agreement spread through the crowd. Slowly, heads began to nod, and faces softened. Encouraged, Jimmy pressed on, urging everyone to join him at the center of the festival. He wanted them to see it wasn't just about old versus new, but a chance to build a mosaic of their joint histories. Just then, a sudden gust of wind swept through, rattling decorations and flickering lanterns. People gasped, their eyes darting toward the ominous clouds still looming overhead. But instead of retreating into doubt, they stood together, arms crossed and shoulders squared. This moment of shared vulnerability became a spark. The festival shifted from an event of division to solidarity, fueled by laughter and community spirit. People began gathering around the music, laughter mingling with the notes floating through the night. Jimmy could see friendships rekindling, old disagreements melting away in the warmth of camaraderie. The factory could wait. Tonight, they were together. Yet, deep down, a feeling of unease lingered in the back of Jimmy's mind. Was this enough to hold everyone together? What would happen when the last song played and realities returned? He scanned the crowd, hoping to find assurance, but all he saw were warm smiles and flickering lanterns. The night stretched on, filled with joyful moments, yet an undercurrent of tension remained alive. When the final notes of music faded and the last lanterns dimmed, Jimmy felt uncertainty creep back. Would the bonds forged tonight last beyond this festival, or would the storm of change break them apart again? As he gazed out at the stars, a yearning grew within him, a desperate need to grasp something solid in this shifting landscape. Tomorrow would come with challenges, and he wasn't sure how they would face them. But one thing was for certain. He'd fight for his family's legacy, for the farmers, and for hope. And so, with a resolute heart, he whispered to himself, "I won't give up. I will find a way." The winds howled softly above, hinting at change, but Jimmy was ready. As he turned away from the festival, a strange spark ignited within him, a thought, a plan that could lead to unexpected transformations. What if he could merge the farming heart of their town with the ambitions of the factory? With a thrill of uncertainty mixed with hope, he decided to take the first step into the unknown. Where would this new journey lead? The following morning was muted, as gray clouds loomed overhead. Jimmy rose early, feeling both apprehensive and excited. The festival seemed like a distant memory now, replaced by a heavy sense of responsibility. Today he would seek out the factory manager, Mr. Blake, in hopes of discussing his vision. As he walked through the quiet streets, he couldn't shake the knot tightening in his stomach. He reached the factory, a massive structure of steel and concrete that loomed over the town like an unwelcome giant. Tension crackled in the air, a tangible reminder of the fight between tradition and progress. As he stepped through the rusted gates, the sound of machinery drowned out the calm. Workers moved about with a sense of purpose, but their eyes reflected the same unease he felt. "Can I help you?" a voice called. It was Casey, one of the factory foremen. He recognized Jimmy and approached with a wary expression. "I need to talk to Mr. Blake," Jimmy replied, striving to sound more confident than he felt. Casey nodded slowly, glancing around as if weighing his words. "Right this way. But you should know he is busy." and he doesn't take kindly to outsiders. With each step toward Mr. Blake's office, Jimmy's heart pounded. What if this conversation didn't go as planned? What if all those hopes he had sparked during the festival extinguished in an instant? But then he remembered the shared laughter and the moments of connection with his community. He clung to that feeling, using it as fuel. Mr. Blake's office was austere, with minimal decorations except for oversized blueprints covering the walls. The man himself was a stout figure, gray hair slicked back, eyes sharp like a hawk's. He barely looked up as Jimmy entered. "What do you want?" he grumbled, a frown etched deep across his forehead. "Mr. Blake," Jimmy began, his voice steady though his palms were sweaty. "I'm here because I believe we can do something special together. The farmers and the factory. We can make this community thrive if we work together." Blake finally glanced up, curiosity sparking in his cold gaze. "Go on." Jimmy explained the idea he'd been nurturing since last night. A collaboration that would integrate local produce into the factory's operations, creating not only a market for farmers but also a connection to the community that felt increasingly distant. "Picture this, sir. What if your factory produced organic products for the community? We can help each other instead of competing against each other. Dreams don't put food on the table, kid," Blake snapped, his tone cutting like glass. "How do you plan to make this happen?" "The festival showed us that we have a tight-knit community," Jimmy pressed back. "People are willing to come together. We can run pilot programs, work out the logistics, even market it together. A partnership that strengthens both the farmers and the factory." Silence hung in the air, heavy with tension, as Blake leaned back in his chair. For a moment, Jimmy felt like he was standing on the edge of a cliff, ready to vanish into the unknown. "You're an idealist," Blake finally said, a slight smirk creeping onto his face. "But maybe, just maybe, you have something worth considering. It's going to take a lot more than mere words to change minds around here." Relief flooded over Jimmy, but doubt still cast a shadow. "I just need a chance. This can work." Blake nodded slowly, the smirk fading. "Meet me in the field tomorrow. If you can rally enough of those farmers, I'll consider giving you a shot." As Jimmy exited the factory, a mix of thrill and fear danced through him. He felt a surge of determination, but now the challenge was even steeper. Could he convince the farmers to trust the factory? Would they back him up against their long-seated fears? With the weight of the future on his shoulders, he took a deep breath. Tomorrow would be crucial. From the warmth of the festival night to the harsh reality of this morning, Jimmy now understood that transformation required not only hope but action. As he stepped back into the town, a new question stirred within him. How could he overcome the long-standing divide between the factory and the farmers? The real journey was just beginning. Jimmy paced the streets of his small town, each footfall echoing his racing thoughts. The sun broke through the gray clouds, casting a warm light that painted a hopeful picture. Yet he couldn't shake his worries. The more he reflected on his plan, the more he knew he needed the farmers to believe in him. Blinking off the sunlight, he turned into a small cafe where locals gathered, their voices buzzing with familiar banter. As he stepped in, the smell of fresh coffee greeted him. He spotted Emily, a farmer's wife known for her homemade pies. She caught his eye and waved him over with a grin. "Jimmy, what's got you looking all serious this morning?" Taking a seat across from her, he hesitated before diving in. "I had a meeting with Mr. Blake at the factory. He's willing to consider a partnership, but I need your help. I want to bring the farmers together and get them on board." Emily's smile faltered slightly. "You know how they feel about that factory. It's not just about the factory. It's what it represents. They won't easily jump into bed with the enemy." "I understand," he said, his voice earnest. "But what if we could change that? What if we could bring local produce to the people and create something that benefits everyone? Community effort." She leaned in, her fingers tracing the rim of her coffee cup. "You think they'll listen to you? The scars run deep, Jimmy. My husband lost so much when the factory cut jobs." "I know. But just think about it. What if we could link agriculture with industry in a way that respects both? We need to show them it's worth the risk. I believe we can prove that factory can be a lifeline, not a threat." The cafe was buzzing, but at their table, an electric tension filled the space. Emily sighed, glancing at the other patrons. If you truly think so, I can talk to some of the farmers. I'll bring it up at the next meeting. But this one tea be easy. Gratitude washed over him. Thank you, Emily. That means a lot. As they talked more about strategies and community involvement, Jimmy felt his passion ignite. The caffeine in his cup buzzed through him, filling him with determination. What if they could host a gathering? A farmer's market right at the factory? The idea of bridging those worlds excited him. They brainstormed ideas, laughter mingling with the sounds of clinking dishes and casual conversations around them. For a moment, uncertainty faded into the background, and hope filled the air. Later, Jimmy walked home, each step lighter than the last. The once distant dream had become tangible. He pictured groups of farmers, stories swapping with factory workers, laughter, and connections sprouting in once fraught spaces. Its potential shimmered just out of reach, waiting for him to grasp it. When he arrived home, Jimmy found his mother watering her garden. "How is it going, honey?" she asked, wiping her brow. He paused for a moment, the sunlight glinting off the leaves. "I think I might be able to make a real difference, but I need the farmers to trust me first." She looked up, her eyes wise and kind. "Trust isn't given easily, Jimmy. Takes time and effort. But if anyone can do it, I believe it's you." That warmth settled in his chest as he remembered his purpose. Tomorrow held the weight of decisions, and he couldn't afford to falter. As he lay in bed that night, he couldn't help but think of the meeting with the farmers. Would they come around? Would they fear risking their livelihoods for something uncertain? The challenges felt gigantic, but that thrill of possibility crept back in. He closed his eyes, whispering to himself, just one step at a time. Little did he know, in the shadows of the town, murmurs of doubt and encouragement were already brewing, and soon everything could change. Would he be ready when the moment arrived? The next morning, the air felt charged with anticipation. Jimmy had barely slept, but the dawn brought a sense of purpose that pushed him out of bed. He grabbed a quick breakfast, his mother's supportive smile just enough to energize him. As he made his way to the community center, each step felt heavier than the last. His stomach churned with nerves. This was more than a meeting. It was a pivot point for everyone he cared about. He imagined the farmers' faces. Some would be skeptical, probably angry, while others might allow a sliver of hope to shine through. When he arrived, voices echoed through the entrance. The room was filled with farmers milling about, their clothes a tapestry of hard work and resilience. Jimmy took a deep breath, steeling himself for the battle ahead. As he approached the front, he spotted Emily talking to a group of other farmers. They leaned in, and he couldn't hear what they were saying, but their expressions mirrored the tension in his gut. "Hey, everyone," he called out, his voice breaking the murmurs. Silence washed over the room, all eyes shifting toward him. "I know you're all wondering why we're here." Emily nodded, stepping aside, her face supportive yet apprehensive. "I've got a proposal that might sound crazy, but hear me out. I believe there's a way we can work together, blending our farming community with the factory's resources to create something meaningful for all of us." Some farmers frowned, crossing their arms. Others whispered among themselves, their voices betraying skepticism. His pulse quickened, but he pressed on. "Think about it. A farmer's market right at the factory. Fresh produce sold directly to the people. It brings jobs, revenue, and maybe a new way to view each other." Mutters filled the room. "How can we trust them?" Someone shouted from the back. "Yet, what does the factory even want with us?" Another added, voice dripping with frustration. "I get it. I really do," he said urgently. "But what if we start rebuilding our community? This is our chance to show them that we're not just farmers or factory workers. We're neighbors, and together we can thrive. I need your support to prove that it works. I need you to trust me." As he spoke, he could see Emily nodding along, her presence giving him strength. Yet doubt loomed in the air like a storm cloud. He could almost feel the disagreement settling in the corners of the room, heavy and suffocating. Then, unexpectedly, an older farmer named Ben stood up. His weathered hands gripped the back of a chair, his eyes holding a deep well of skepticism but glimmering with reflection. Jimmy, what's your plan exactly? You can't just wave a wand and expect everything to change. Jimmy felt a swell of gratitude. This was the opening he needed, the chance to share his vision more clearly. You're right, Ben. Change doesn't come easy. But I have a plan, and I need your insight, your support. We can discuss each step, ensuring it's safe and beneficial for everyone involved. A debate began, voices clashing and merging. As the conversation unfolded, feelings erupted: fear, hope, anger, and the longing for a better future mixed into a heated discussion. Gradually, something shifted. A few farmers began to voice their thoughts filled with not just skepticism but curiosity. Those weary faces, once tightened with disbelief, now looked contemplative. Jimmy's heart raced. Did he sense movement? The path was long ahead, but tiny rays of connection began breaking through the clouds. Maybe, just maybe, they would turn towards one another instead of away. Suddenly, a hand shot up. It was Emily. If we could come together and plan, maybe we could help change minds. The room held its breath, surprised. There it was, the spark of hope. But just then, the door swung open with a heavy thud. Mr. Blake stepped in, his expression unreadable. Tension thickened again. Sorry for the interruption, he said, scanning the room. But I have something to say that you all need to hear. The atmosphere shifted to nail-biting anticipation. What did he want? Would it help or hinder Jimmy's quest for unity? Mr. Blake's presence engulfed the room, his authority undeniable. The whispered arguments faded into an uneasy silence. Jimmy's heart thudded loudly, the moment stretching like a taut rope ready to snap. All eyes were on Blake, waiting for him to reveal his intentions. Thank you for your patience, he began, his tone unwavering. I understand that there are concerns among you. The factory is a significant part of this community. However, it's important you hear me out. His gaze landed on Jimmy, a mix of something that looked like respect and caution. Many of you don't see the bigger picture, Blake continued, his voice steady. The company has been struggling, and we're looking for new ways to connect with the community. This is not just about profits, it's about building relationships. Jimmy's idea isn't far-fetched. In fact, it's a step in the right direction. Jimmy felt his stomach flip. Was this a twist of fate? It was like the clouds above had parted just for a moment, and rays of sunlight were inching through. Now, that being said, Blake raised a finger. There are regulations and protocols we need to address. We can't simply bring a market to life overnight. There are logistics to consider, resources to allocate, and there have been hurdles that we've faced which may impact our collaboration. The air thickened with uncertainty as growers began to exchange glances, their expressions shifting from stubbornness to contemplation again. Jimmy squeezed his hands into fists, drawing in a breath. This was a pivotal moment. What kind of hurdles? A voice shouted from the back. It was Martha, a seasoned farmer known for her candor. She was a woman of few words, but when she spoke, everyone listened. Tell us what we're up against. Blake nodded, showing no sign of dismissal. Our first issue is timing. With the harvest season approaching, we need to ensure operations aren't disrupted. We can work out a plan, but it's going to take time, understanding, and most importantly, communication. Jimmy seized the opening. We can form a committee, he said, feeling a spark flare within him. Let us meet regularly, share our developments, and work together to iron out every detail before it goes live. I like that idea, Ben mumbled, almost surprising himself. Seems like if we're to do this, we ought to do it right. Gradually, a buzz of agreement spread across the room. A sense of unity was trickling back in, the promise of collaboration starting to bloom within their hearts. As discussions continued, a sunlight warmth wrapped around Jimmy, intermingling with the tension still thick in the air. They weren't fully there yet, but he could feel the cracks in the wall of opposition beginning to widen. Hope was a powerful thing. But then, just as things were looking optimistic, the sound of an unmistakable phone ringing cut through their hopeful chatter. Everyone turned their heads toward Blake, who had pulled out his phone, his brow furrowing as he listened intently. "This is not good," he said, his tone suddenly grim as he turned away to speak in hurried whispers. The chatter shifted again, uncertainty spilling into the air like cold water on a warm day. "What now?" someone murmured, frowning deeply. Jimmy felt dread creeping in. Had they just taken 2 steps forward only to be pushed 2 steps back? What could possibly disrupt their fragile momentum? As Blake returned, the tension was palpable. "I need to address this immediately," he said, his face etched with worry. "But I will follow up with all of you about our next steps. Promise." A wave of confusion washed over the room. With the light of possibility flickering, Jimmy faced the restless crowd, his heart racing. Would they stay on this uncertain path, or fall into chaos? Before he could ask Blake any questions, the factory head turned on his heel and strode out, leaving behind a whirlwind of suspicion and anxiety. Jimmy took a deep breath, realizing how precarious their situation had just turned. Would their brief moment of unity withstand whatever news Blake just received? The room was filled with murmurs once again, and he felt a familiar tension gripping him. All he wanted was to unite these farmers, to start healing their frustrations. But the storm was far from over. "Okay, everyone," he called out, desperation lacing his voice. "We can't let this hold us back now. Let us keep talking. Let us work through this together." But as the murmurs grew louder, the fear resurfaced, strangling the hope they had just rekindled. The path ahead darkened again, and Jimmy could only wonder, what would be the next blow to their fragile unity? Would they face it together, or succumb to the doubts creeping back in? Jimmy stood at the front of the room, staring at the now empty doorway where Blake had just exited. The feeling of dread mixed with disbelief was palpable in the air. He could see the uncertainty etched onto the faces of the farmers who had once again sunk into the shadows of doubt. "Martha, what do we do now?" Jimmy turned to her, hoping for guidance. She was the heart of their community, always steady, always strong. Instead, she shook her head slightly, her brow furrowed. "Guess we need to decide if we trust Blake," she said slowly, turning her gaze to the crowd. "But if he leaves us hanging," the unspoken words lingered like a storm cloud ready to burst. The murmurs turned into a clamor, voices overlapping, a cacophony of worry and resentment. "That was our chance," someone yelled. "And now what? We'll be left without a market. Don't let them do this. We're stronger together," Jimmy shouted, desperation clawing at him. He wanted to reach each heart, to rekindle the sparks that seemed so bright moments ago. "We've been through worse. We can't let fear drive us apart." His words hung in the air, emitting a sense of urgency. A few farmers began nodding, but others crossed their arms, clearly skeptical. Jimmy glanced around, trying to meet the eyes of everyone. He could see the uncertainty multiplied by the fear of change. "Listen," he pressed on, pulling forward. "If Blake is struggling to connect with us, why don't we take initiative ourselves? Let us get together, plan our next moves, create something solid." Martha stepped forward, her voice steady now. "I've worked this land for decades. We've always adapted to changes even when times were tough. If we lose our factory, we'll lose our community. But together we can prove that we're worth the investment." A ripple of encouragement surged through the crowd. Jimmy felt his heart lift, even amidst the swirling chaos. Maybe with Martha's words, they could pave a new path for themselves. "I say we organize a meeting of our own," Ben said, his voice stronger now. "Community meeting. We bring everyone in, talk about our needs, our demands. Show Blake that we're not just names on a list. We're part of this town." "Exactly," Jimmy said, excitement mixing with the nervous energy surfacing within him. "We need each other now more than ever. Let us set a date, bring everyone together." "Can we do that?" One by one, the farmers nodded. The strength of the moment started to shift. It wasn't about waiting for Blake anymore. It was about coming together on their own terms. "I can help organize it," Martha said, her sharp mind already turning. "We'll need to get the word out. Maybe even put up flyers?" "I can help with that," another farmer chimed in, smirking. "I've got a stash of old posters lying around. Wouldn't it hurt to use my paintbrush again?" Their laughter felt good, like light peeking through dark clouds. Hours turned into a whirlwind of ideas, names, and roles. They drew up plans, made lists, exchanged phone numbers, a newfound unity blooming as the fears slowly began to recede like night yielding to dawn. But just as optimism set in, Blake returned, his expression grave and instructive, a stark contrast to the newfound energy in the room. Jimmy's heart dropped as anticipation twisted within him. Sorry for the abrupt exit, Blake began, but his tone was now laced with urgency. I just received some critical news about the factory. The crowd fell silent. Every heart beat in unison, brimming with uncertainty again. What fresh complication loomed ahead? What did Blake's return mean for their fragile alliance? The room held its breath, waiting for the next shoe to drop. Would their moment of unity survive this latest upheaval? Or would it crumble under the weight of whatever news Blake carried? Blake took a deep breath, as if fortifying himself for the storm brewing in the room. The weight of the farmer's eyes upon him was palpable, a mix of hope and fear reflected in their expressions. The factory, it's in trouble, he began, his voice steady, though a hint of something unspoken danced in his eyes. The owners have decided to slash funding due to dwindling sales. They're considering drastic cuts. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Jimmy felt the air grow heavy, thick with worry. What does that mean for us? He asked, constraining the urgency in his tone. It means layoffs, possible closure if we don't act fast. Blake leaned forward on the desk, trying to infuse his words with gravity. I'm telling you this because we can't wait for them to dictate our future. We need to negotiate better, and I need your help to do it. What can we do? Someone shouted from the back, frustration coloring his voice. Everything. We band together and show them that we are essential. We can create a plan, present it to the owners. If we can prove that our community is dedicated and supportive, they might reconsider. The murmurs of discontent stirred again, but this time they were mixed with something else, determination. Martha stepped forward, her voice powerful. They think they can just leave us in the dark? We are the backbone of this place. Let us make a list. How many employees would be affected? What can we offer in return for them to reassess? Jimmy watched as the crowd rallied together, an electric atmosphere mixing with possibilities. They were brainstorming logistics, drawing on strengths. It was like seeing seeds of hope planted in the most unexpected soil. But then that dread seeped back in. What if they refuse us? What if nothing we do makes a difference? Jimmy's voice trembled slightly, vulnerability washing over him. A wise man once told me, you miss 100 of the chances you don't take. Blake said, a hint of a smile breaking through the tension. We have to try. Together. The room buzzed with renewed energy. A wave of ideas surged back and forth, fueled by urgency and unity. They were no longer just individuals standing alone. They were a community fortified by shared purpose. Jimmy felt his heartbeat sync with theirs, a rhythm of hope. They were mapping out their strategy, gathering data, preparing testimonies, even drafting a message that conveyed their commitment. The fear began to lift, replaced with action. As the clock ticked, more hands shot up with proposals. Let us set up a meeting with the owners. Ben suggested, his resolve palpable. Let us show them just how integral we are. Exactly, Jimmy agreed, feeling a fire ignite within him. We have stories to tell, reasons to stay. Martha's face beamed as she rallied them forward, tossing out reminders of friends, family, and the generations tied to the land. We'll represent everyone who has worked hard to build this community. But just as they were about to finalize their plans, a newcomer stepped through the doors. There was a flicker of recognition across the room. It was Larry, the town's former mayor, known for both his fiery spirit and undeniable connections. He approached the front as they all paused, curiosity etched on their faces. What's all this? I hear there's trouble brewing, he said, eyes sharp but concerned. Jimmy's heart raced as he took in Larry's presence. We're fighting for our factory, for our community. We want to make sure they know we're not going down without a fight. Larry nodded slowly, then something shifted within him. Count me in, Jimmy. You might just need a few more allies behind you, and I know exactly how we can get the attention we deserve. The room erupted into hopeful chatter, but the nagging feeling of uncertainty hung in the air. Would they really have the support needed? As ideas flew, Jimmy's eyes met Blake's. Both men were grappling with the same truth. They were standing at the edge of a storm that could either break them or make them stronger. "We need to act fast," Jimmy said, his voice steady. "Every moment counts, and soon the deadline will be here." The crowd murmured, the sense of purpose crystallizing into action. What other surprises lay hidden in this brewing storm? And would they rise to the occasion, or would their efforts be washed away like footprints in the sand? As the buzz of ideas continued to swirl around the room, Larry took command, his presence commanding attention. "Let us harness that passion," he said, pacing slightly with a fire in his eyes. "I might have a few contacts who can help us rally support. We need to turn this situation into a movement." Jimmy felt his heart thud harder in his chest. This was it, the spark they needed. "What do you suggest?" he asked, leaning forward, noticing how the crowd leaned in with him. Their focus sharpened. Larry paused, gathering his thoughts. "Social media, local news, even petitions. If we can spread the word, we can garner attention. I have friends in the press who love a good story about a community standing up for itself." "Great idea, Larry," Martha called out, enthusiasm bubbling in her voice. "We can all share our stories. People need to see what's at stake here." Jimmy felt a surge of optimism. They could shine a light on their plight, to show the world what the factory meant to them, to their families, how it shaped their daily lives. "Let us create a video. Make it personal. Show the faces behind the production line." The crowd murmured in agreement, an atmosphere of excitement spilling over. They spoke of meeting locations, drafting scripts, and message points that would resonate with the owners and their potential supporters. Each idea seemed to build on the last, like stacking blocks toward a towering ambition. But even as hope swelled, unease flickered at the edges of Jimmy's mind. What if we share too much? What if the factory owners use information against us? He raised the concern, tempering their enthusiasm with cautious realism. Larry regarded him thoughtfully. "It's a risk, but keeping quiet is a bigger one. They can't threaten us when we're unified and loud. We have to show them we'll fight for our livelihood, openly." Jimmy nodded slowly, the conflicting emotions swirling inside him like a storm. He could feel the weight of their collective history, the stories of families woven into the very fabric of that factory. Returning to his roots. "You're right. We have to step out of the shadows." As the group broke into smaller teams to organize and plan, a sense of camaraderie filled the room. Jimmy moved between clusters, helping others gain clarity, hanging on to every word of encouragement exchanged. But glimmers of doubt still lingered, just beneath the surface. Would it be enough to sway the owners? Time passed quickly, then slowed, as nervous energy surged and ebbed among the group. They finally launched into action, gathering equipment for filming and drafting posts for social media. Jimmy, feeling the resolve of those around him, began to let go of his own doubts, channeling them into focus. Then one of the younger farmers caught his eye, an anxious frown lining her brow. "What if tonight doesn't go as planned? What if they ignore us?" Jimmy crossed the room to her. "Listen," he began, gently holding her gaze. "Our voices matter. This factory is our life source. Whether they listen or not will make them see us. That's what we must hold on to." The girl nodded, her resolve seeming to strengthen. The energy in the room shifted as they wrapped up preparations, transforming initial anxiety into determination. Blake stepped up front again, his enthusiasm contagious. "Let us make this our moment. If we fail, we'll regroup together. But if we win, it'll be more than just keeping our jobs. It'll be about standing as a united front. The power shifts to us. Together." The group responded in unison, a crescendo of unity echoing through the room. With every step they took, from organizing to filming, they encompassed the spirit of resilience. Yet even as optimism spread, the looming uncertainty reminded them of the magnitude of the challenge ahead. As they began to disperse into the night, Jimmy looked around, the shadows of doubt replaced by a glimmer of hope. Tomorrow could be the turning point, he whispered to himself. But in the back of his mind, a new thought crept in, a question that set his nerves alight. Would they have enough time? Would the storm brewing outside their plans break or empower them? The day had ended, but the battle was just beginning. What awaited them at the dawn? The following morning, the sun broke through the clouds, bathing the town in warm golden light. Birds chirped, but Jimmy could barely hear them. He paced nervously, anticipation gnawing at him like a hungry dog. Today was pivotal. Today they would present their case to the factory owners. As he arrived at the community center, a palpable energy filled the air. Farmers greeted him with nods of encouragement. This was a gathering of unified hearts, ready to fight. Each face was more than a fellow farmer. They were friends, families, and neighbors, all holding onto the same dream. Who's ready to fight for our future? Jimmy called, pumping his fist in the air. Cheers erupted, voices ringing strong. It felt like the weight that had pressed upon his shoulders all week was lifted slightly, replaced with a sense of purpose. Martha stood at his side, her voice steady. Remember, we have each other's backs. We've built this community. Now we'll defend it. Exactly, Jimmy added, not just feeling the words, but believing them. This isn't just about saving jobs. It's about preserving who we are. As they gathered their notes, excitement shifted into tangible fear. Jimmy took a deep breath, glancing at the clock. The meeting with Mr. Blake and the factory owners was only an hour away. Would they listen? Would they see the strength in their community? They piled into cars, the atmosphere electric. As they drove toward the factory, Jimmy caught glimpses of the fields. He adored the sunflowers dancing, corn swaying in the breeze. Memories of harvests, laughter, and music from past gatherings shot through his mind. This was home. Upon arriving, the stark steel structure of the factory loomed ahead, overshadowing everything. Its might was daunting, but deep down Jimmy felt a surge of courage with each step forward. The gathering crowd outside was a patchwork of colored shirts representing the farmers. Blues, greens, and earth tones, a reminder of the land they nourished. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. Mr. Blake and the factory owners waited, expressionless behind a long table. As Jimmy stepped up, the weight of their stares felt like an anvil pressing down on him. "Thank you for meeting with us," he began, his voice clear though nerves simmered underneath. Slowly, he introduced the farmers, highlighting their stories, the heart and soul they had poured into their work. As each person spoke, a piece of the community was laid bare for the factory owners to see. And as they listened, tension began to thaw. "Without us," Ben spoke passionately, "you lose more than workers. You lose a part of this town's identity. We can work together. Let us create programs that support us both." A moment of silence hung in the air. A collective breath held as hope flickered like a candleless flame. Jimmy turned to Mr. Blake, desperation mixing with fervor. "We can be partners. Show that you value this community, and we will champion your factory together." Mr. Blake glanced at the owners, then back at the farmers. "You want to create a partnership? It's going to take trust and collaboration. But if you're willing to stand together, they have the heart." "Mr. Blake," interjected Martha, "we aren't just employees, we are your community. Together, we support each other, but we need you to believe in us too." A murmur ran through the owners. Jimmy's heart raced. This was the moment of truth. He could see the hesitation softening, the flickers of recognition in their eyes as they realized there was strength in unity, strength they couldn't achieve alone. After what felt like a lifetime, Mr. Blake nodded slowly. "Very well. We'll set a plan in motion. First, we start with a pilot program, local produce for factory snacks and lunches. We'll test the waters." Cheers erupted from the crowd, and overwhelming relief washed over Jimmy, his heart swelling as he embraced Martha. They had taken a monumental step, one that wouldn't erase every challenge, but it was a beginning, a step toward recognizing each other's worth. Sometime later, outside, the farmers clustered together, laughter and tears mingling in the air. It felt like a celebration, their resilience shining bright against an uncertain landscape. In that moment, surrounded by those who believed in him, Jimmy felt lighter than air. "We did it!" he shouted, throwing his arms wide as others joined in exuberant cheers. "Yes," echoed the word from every corner. The festival that started with hope had transformed into something more significant, a movement of people who found strength in each other. They were no longer divided. This community would continue, evolve, replanting roots into the soil of collaboration as they started to disperse, laughter echoing off the factory's walls. Jimmy realized his journey was far from over, but it was a journey fueled by hope, determination, and most of all, the power of community. That night, as he lay in bed, he repeated the words he had shared before. "I won't give up. I will find a way." Change was here. It was bright and shining, and it was only the beginning of a beautiful story. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share.